Hello, freaks, geeks, and all those unique. We've blasted into the future with season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, and we will be getting into reviewing episode 3 of season 3, which is People of Earth. It was written by Bo Yeon Kim and Erica Lippold, and directed by Jonathan Frakes. Hey, I know that name there. So, this episode, we finally see Discovery reunited with Michael. I say finally, but it's only been 3 episodes. But still, I love seeing them come back together. And I mean, I guess it's finally for Michael because she's been waiting for a year. And we do see a montage of her waiting for them to come, which is actually, I had said at the end of my episode 1 review, that I kind of wanted them to do that sort of montage in episode 2, but I guess I had to wait till episode 3 to get it. But see, I called it. But we also see what exactly happened with the burn. It wasn't just that the dilithium went inert. The dilithium exploded and destroyed basically all of the ships, and so with it, all of Starfleet. What we had of Starfleet was only the people that were grounded at the time. So, I mean, that kind of makes more sense as to why the Federation should have been taken out so quickly. If Starfleet was just absolutely decimated in the burn, it kind of makes sense that Starfleet should quickly follow. But it kind of doesn't make any sense that most of the dilithium was destroyed, but some of it wasn't. So was it just the dilithium that wasn't being used at the time, or dilithium? Did they have to mine more dilithium? What's the science behind it, or I guess the pseudoscience? I'd really like to understand it. I mean, is it just that dilithium has to be processed in a certain way to be usable as fuel for a warp core? And that the dilithium that people have now is stuff that didn't go through that process until after the burn happened. This episode, I mean, the biggest thing is Michael reuniting with the crew, and I got a little bit teary when Michael was hugging everybody. That I know it hasn't been that long since I've seen them together, but it does feel like it. And, while I might have been a little bit teary when they were reuniting, it was when Michael said that it was always going to be Saru being the captain. That's when I was just crying buckets. I couldn't handle it because I'd wanted Saru to become the captain so badly. And yes, honestly, it always was going to be Saru. It couldn't have been Michael. And I will get more into Michael's motivations throughout this episode. But I think even before everything she went through, I don't think it would have been Michael. It had to have been him. And Saru is, he's perfect to be the captain. And I'm so happy. Let's protect Saru. I always loved Saru, but for some reason in the last couple of episodes, I've become even fonder of him than I was before. He may already be very high up on my list of favorite captains. So I liked the moment with Tilly, really kind of coming to terms with the enormity of what they did. Because in the moment, they can, decide, oh, yes, of course, Michael, we'll come with you. But it's only when things calm down that you really realize, oh, I'm never going to see my family again. And just Tilly is the perfect person to really have that realization that she's separated herself from everything. Separated herself from her girlfriend. Cake is eternal. I need that shirt. Or at the very least, CBS reopen your fan art submissions on TeePublic and Redbubble so I can do some more Star Trek t-shirts, because I would love to do Cake is Eternal, because it is. That is a great line and needs to be on a shirt. And Tilly talking about Michael's hair. The hair needs to be pointed out because it does, kind of say how long it's been. And I did enjoy, as part of the montage, seeing the different stages of Michael's hair. And the hair is just banging. It's so good. One thing I'm not sure of in this episode is they are setting up Michael as a darker character. Now, certainly she's gone through some things since going into the future, but Giorgio is absolutely positive that Michael has changed too much from who she used to be and is more like the Michael from the Mirror universe now. And I'm not sure I'm featuring that. It feels a bit like a stretch to me. I feel like there's other stuff that you can do with Michael other than making her feel like an outsider yet again. One thing that I was wondering during this episode, and this is completely random, but if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that completely random thoughts that lead to storylines are kind of my bag. But is Pike still on Talos 4? Because they kind of implied that Pike would live forever there, because they're not actually real. They're, they're projections by the Telosians. I think that is something that should be thought about for the future, because it would be really nice to have Anson Mount appear again as Pike. I mean, obviously he's going to be busy on Strange New Worlds, but that's a way that we could always bring in a little bit of the past. Them going back to Earth and finding that Earth has closed itself off. I found it very uncomfortable. I understand what they were going for, but being that we are, as of this filming, 4 days away from a major election in which certainly border security has played a tremendous issue in one of the party's platforms, and has for a long time, the idea of Earth shutting itself off from every other planet makes me super, super uncomfortable. Do I understand it? Yes. But I'm super uncomfortable with everything political these days. So I don't know. I'm a bit also weirded out by the fact that it suggested that other planets are not self-sustainable anymore. They're planets. Other planets aren't. Earth is self-sustainable, but there are other planets that are not able to make everything that they need. Oh, I don't like that. It actually reminds me a little bit of Firefly, where you had all of these planets out on the fringes that could not properly support themselves. They basically could only support a little bit of life. But, the life could exist, but not exactly flourish. So that's an interesting way to take things. So Book was shirtless again in this one as we put him into a uniform, which this is the second episode that he's been in, and the second one that he's been shirtless. So this feels like it's a recurring thing with him, and I can't say that it really bothers me all that much. Though getting him into a Discovery uniform made me a little bit uncomfortable because of the uniform that he was in. He was in a lieutenant's uniform for security. And just that they don't say it outright, but they pretty heavily imply that he and Michael are already involved in some sort of casual relationship. So that he should be dressed up similarly to Tyler so quickly didn't make me feel great. The thing that made this episode, the thing that really just, the reason why I mean, it might sound like I'm bagging on this episode a little bit. And that's because, yes, out of the 3 episodes that have aired, this is kind of my least favorite of them. But I did like this episode, and that's entirely because of Adira. I thought this character was fantastic. I loved how they were introduced. This kid genius that made Tilly and Stamets super uncomfortable because of how smart they were. Uh, and just kind of understanding right away what everything was. They were super cute. And not, well, I mean, yes, physically. Adira is very cute physically, but in a kiddie way because oh my God, that sounds so weird. I thought Adira was adorable. um, I just liked how enthusiastic they were. I do look forward to them being able to explain their pronouns because since they had made such a um, big deal about them being non binary in the press release, the fact that they were introduced with two people, or maybe even three people, using feminine pronouns, um, just made me uncomfortable. But it made me, but in thinking about it, it's like, oh, they're not out yet, or we need this introduction to them. And in the next episode, when we're going to get to know more about them, uh, we'll find out more. And we knew that the Trills were going to be involved in this season. We didn't know how. We just knew that they were going to go to Trill, and we do know that one of the new recurring characters is a Trill. Um, but we're introduced to this idea in this episode, in that one, the person who is kind of from the Federation that they were going to see was a Trill, and this Trill is now inside of Adira. Um, okay, I think this is really funny. That when the announcement first came out, that because we haven't been introduced to them yet, and I suck at looking up information. Um, but the character was said to aspire to become a host to a symbiont. And I had hypothesized that perhaps that character wasn't going to be a Trill, but wanted to become a host. And I feel like I was so close. I was so close because I knew that I felt like there was going to be a character that was going to be involved with the Trill, but that was going to be human. And I was right. I just got the characters wrong. It was the non-binary character. It was Adira that was a human with a Trill in them, rather than I'm sorry. I have to look up the other character. Gray. Uh, it was Adira rather than Gray, which do I get partial credit for that? For being able to predict that they were going to go there. And honestly, if I were to, from here, predict where things are going to go, Adira is not going to keep the Tull symbiont in them. So I think that symbiont is eventually going to go to Gray, which is interesting. That is, I think, an interesting way for the story to go. One thing I would like to say that I have seen come up several times, that people have commented on the idea of Adira only being non-binary because of the symbiont, and I don't think that's the case. I think that Adira is non-binary and happens to have a symbiont. I think totally they're totally separate from one another. At least I hope that's the case, because by the way, I do say this as somebody who is cis, but I would like to see trans and non-binary characters in science fiction where the trans and non-binary aspects of them are not caused by a fantastical element. I want it to exist as a part of the world, just as a matter of course. Like, you can have a character that just happens to be trans or happens to be non-binary, and it's just a thing that happens. There doesn't need to be an explanation for it. It doesn't need to be like, oh, how do these ships fly at warp? Which, yes, that needs some sort of fantastic explanation. We don't need a fantastic explanation for trans and non-binary characters existing. But I like Adira so far. I think they've got some good chemistry with Stamets and Tilly. So I can't wait to see more of them. I'm glad that they were able to get onto the ship. The main story throughout this, which is one of the reasons why I think I didn't care for this one as much. I thought it was a bit weaker than some of the other the plots. This whole idea of this one ship wanting to get to Earth. The one thing I liked from it, when the battle was going to be starting out, Saru made some comments about how one action could set off a war. And Saru and Michael share a look between each other. And you could tell they were both thinking about the Battle of Binary Star. And they didn't need to mention anything about it. Saru said that, and then they looked at each other. And it was just such a subtle reference. And then it goes even further in that you do have Michael going and doing her own thing. Which is exactly what happened in the Battle of Binary Star. Michael went off and did her own thing, only this time it does work. So that was interesting. Was not at all surprised that Wen ended up being human. I knew that Wen was going to be some sort of familiar species. I was like, okay, are you going to be human? Are you going to be a Vulcan? I knew it was going to be something that we had already seen before, and something that, or some species that was a part of the Federation, because it just kind of, that kind of called out to me. But yeah, I think in the end, this episode was a lot of getting people back into place. There was some, I would say, emotional heavy lifting. While the last two episodes have been kind of expository for setting up the environment, now we're emotionally getting everybody into place, and it was okay. It was not my favorite, but I still liked it. Thursday nights are going to absolutely kill me emotionally for the next couple of weeks, because I have Supernatural, Discovery, and then later on I have Mandalorian. So within 6 hours, I have 3 of my favorite shows just kind of coming at me. And hopefully all of this made sense. But yes, I did enjoy this episode, but not quite as much as the others. So please tell me what you thought of this episode. Comment below with your thoughts on People of Earth. If you want to see more Star Trek videos from me, please subscribe to my channel. You can also support me over on Patreon, where you can get early videos, exclusive videos. You can participate in polls to have your voice heard for what I'm doing. You can also further support me by buying me a coffee. If you want something fun to wear, you can go hit TeePublic and Redbubble for my shirt. Today I'm wearing my Bisexual Starfleet Pride shirt. So, until next time, live long, and may the Force be with you.